The mountain road was empty when her car died. One stranger stopped, fixed it for free, and drove away. Only then did she realize the man who helped her wasn't a stranger at all, but the love she lost 15 years ago, and never stopped searching for. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. Ryan Caldwell didn't like driving that highway, even though he'd done it 100 times for parts runs. The mountains looked peaceful from a distance, but up close they felt like a trap, too much empty space, nowhere to hide if something went wrong. He was headed back toward the city, thinking about Lucy's science project and the fact that the rent was due in 4 days, when he saw the car on the shoulder. It was the kind of car that didn't belong out here, sleek, black, flawless, the sort of luxury you only saw downtown outside glass towers. Hazard lights blinked like a heartbeat. A woman stood beside the hood with a dead phone in her hand, jaw tight, hair pulled back with the neatness of someone used to being in control. Ryan's first instinct was to keep going. He wasn't a hero in a movie. He was a mechanic. A single father. Every extra minute meant another minute he wasn't home. But then the woman looked up, and even from the road he saw something that made his hands tighten on the wheel. Not fear. Not helplessness. Loneliness. He pulled over anyway. Battery? He asked, stepping out. My car is new, she said, as if that should have prevented failure. Her voice was calm and educated, but she sounded tired. It just died. Ryan popped the hood, leaned in, and found the problem in seconds. Loose terminal. Probably shaken loose by the last pothole. He tightened it down and nodded toward the driver's seat. Try now. The engine came alive instantly. Her shoulders dropped like she'd been holding herself upright with pure stubbornness. Thank you, she said, reaching into her purse. Please, at least let me pay you. Ryan wiped his hands on a rag. No. She blinked. No. It took me 2 minutes, he said. Just, get home safe. He climbed back into his old pickup. As he pulled away, he glanced in the mirror and saw her still standing there, not getting into her car yet, staring at him like something had cracked open inside her. He didn't know her. He didn't remember her. But Madeline Brooks stood on that mountain shoulder with her heart pounding like it was 20 years old again, because she'd recognized him the moment he smiled. Ryan Caldwell. 15 years ago, he'd stepped between her and 3 drunk men behind the university library. He'd taken her hand and walked her back to her dorm like she mattered. And then he'd vanished from her life so completely that she'd convinced herself she'd imagined how safe he made her feel. Now he was real. And he had just driven away as if she were a stranger. The next morning, Ryan's shop was already loud, air compressor whining, someone arguing about an invoice, a radio playing too brightly for a Tuesday. He was under a Corolla when he heard the bell above the office door. Can I help you? His receptionist called. Ryan slid out from under the car, wiping his hands, and looked up. The woman from the highway stood in the office like she'd stepped out of a different world. Not flashy, just expensive in a quiet way. Cream coat, simple jewelry, posture that said she'd walked into rooms full of men in suits and made them listen. Her eyes locked onto Ryan. He felt something twist in his chest for a second, like a memory he refused to touch. Hi, she said carefully. It's Ryan, right? He frowned. Yeah. She held up a small paper bag. I wanted to say thank you. Yesterday. You wouldn't take money, so, lunch? Ryan hesitated. It wasn't the lunch that unsettled him. It was the way she said his name like it mattered. You drove all the way here to give me a sandwich, he asked. A flicker of embarrassment crossed her face. It sounds ridiculous when you say it like that. He glanced at the cars waiting outside, at the schedule he couldn't afford to fall behind on, then at her again. Something told him if he said no, he'd regret it for reasons he didn't fully understand. 10 minutes, he said. They sat outside on a bench near the shop, the city's edge stretching behind them, warehouses, billboards, traffic. She unwrapped her sandwich like she'd never eaten outside a boardroom before. "Madeline," she said. "Madeline Brooks." Ryan nodded politely, still not connecting anything. Then she asked softly, "Do you remember Westfield University?" The name hit him like a cold wrench to the ribs. He stared at her. 15 years ago, she continued. Behind the library. October. 3 men. You stepped in. Ryan's hands went still. For a moment he wasn't sitting on a bench. He was back there, heart pounding, smelling beer and cheap cologne, seeing Madeline's face pale under the campus lights. Hearing one of the guys laugh and say her last name like it was a joke. Brooks. He remembered that part. Too well. Ryan swallowed. That was you. Madeline's eyes filled, but she didn't let the tears fall. You disappeared. I looked for you. Ryan's throat tightened. He'd sworn he'd never talk about that night again. Because disappearing hadn't been his choice. He opened his mouth to answer, and his phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. Then another vibration. A text flashed across the screen, "Stop talking to her." Ryan's blood turned to ice. Madeline saw his face change. "Ryan, what is it?" He looked up, scanning the street. And that's when he saw it. Across the road, half a block down, a black SUV idled with tinted windows. Watching. Ryan didn't tell Madeline about the SUV right away. He just stood, too fast, and said, "I have to get back to work." Madeline rose with him, confusion and hurt mixing in her expression. Did I do something wrong? Ryan hated how that sounded, like he was punishing her for asking the truth. No, he said quietly. You didn't. But the truth was complicated. The truth had teeth. That evening, after the shop closed and Lucy was asleep on the couch with a cartoon still playing, Ryan sat at his kitchen table staring at his phone like it might explode. Another message came in. You think she forgot what happened? We didn't. His hands shook. 15 years ago, Ryan hadn't just walked her home. He'd fought. Those men had been drunk, but they weren't random students. One of them had been connected, son of a donor. The kind of kid campus security didn't arrest. The kind of kid whose father sat on boards and signed checks. Ryan had stepped in anyway, because Madeline's fear had lit a fuse in him. He'd shoved one of them back. Another had swung. Ryan had hit him. Then security arrived late, and everything flipped. The story became, scholarship boy attacks donor's son. Not, 3 men cornered a freshman and threatened her. Madeline had tried to tell the truth. Ryan remembered her crying, saying she'd go to the dean. And then her father appeared, calm, powerful, voice like a verdict. He'd pulled Madeline aside and whispered something that made her go quiet. Ryan had been offered a deal the next day. Sign paperwork. Admit to assault. Drop out quietly. No charges. No lawsuit. No public scandal. And the final line, the one burned into Ryan's mind, had been spoken by a lawyer in a perfect suit. If you love that girl, you'll let her forget you. So Ryan left school. Left town. Left Madeline. He built a life anyway. Lucy happened. Responsibility happened. Survival happened. And now Madeline Brooks, tech CEO, headline name, face on magazine covers, had walked into his shop like the past was just a bittersweet memory. But somebody out there remembered it as a weapon. The next morning, Madeline called him. I'm coming by, she said. I'm not letting you shut me out. Ryan almost told her not to. Instead, he said, fine. Because part of him was tired of being afraid. And part of him needed to know if she remembered the truth, or only the version her world had allowed her to keep. Madeline arrived after closing, when the shop was quiet and the city light outside was turning gold. Ryan didn't offer her a tour. He just leaned against a workbench and said, "You remember more than you're saying." Madeline's expression tightened. "Ryan. You know why I vanished," he pressed. "Don't you?" For a moment she looked like she might lie. Then she exhaled, slow and painful. "My father made it disappear," she said. "He told me you'd be arrested if I kept talking. He said you'd lose everything." Ryan stared at her. "And you believed him?" he asked, voice rough. "I was 18, she whispered. "I was terrified. And my father," she swallowed. "My father didn't ask. He decided." Ryan felt old anger rise, but beneath it was something worse, grief. 15 years of silence, built on fear disguised as protection. Madeline stepped closer. "I never forgot you," she said. I learned to live like it didn't matter." Ryan laughed once, sharp and bitter. "It mattered to me." "I know," she said. "That's why I'm here." He wanted to believe her. Then his shop phone rang, an old landline almost no one used. Ryan frowned and picked it up. "Mr. Caldwell," a man's voice said smoothly. "This is Raymond Sutter." Ryan's stomach dropped. He recognized the name instantly. The lawyer. Raymond Sutter, now a board advisor for Brooks Tech. Madeline stiffened when she heard the voice through the receiver. "We've been made aware," Sutter continued, "that you've reconnected with Ms. Brooks. We advise you to remember your agreement from 2010. Ryan's hand tightened around the phone. "What agreement?" The lawyer chuckled softly. "The one you signed in exchange for leniency. The one that includes non-disclosure. The one that keeps a certain incident from becoming inconvenient." Madeline's face went pale. "Ryan. I didn't know he'd call you." Sutter's voice stayed calm, almost friendly. "Let's not complicate Ms. Brooks' life, Mr. Caldwell. She has a company to protect. A reputation. Investors. A board." Ryan's heart hammered. "Why now?" A pause. Then, "Because some stories don't stay buried forever. And if you become emotional, we will respond accordingly." The line clicked dead. Madeline stared at Ryan like she'd been slapped. "He's threatening you." Ryan didn't answer. He just turned toward the side door, toward Lucy's small bedroom down the hall. Because Sutter didn't just have power. He had reach. And Ryan had a daughter. Ryan didn't sleep. By dawn, he'd made a choice that terrified him more than any threat. He called Madeline. "Meet me," he said. "Downtown. Public place." Madeline arrived with no entourage, no driver, no assistants. Just her. Blonde hair loose, eyes tired but determined. For once she looked less like a CEO and more like a woman who'd carried loneliness so long it felt normal. Ryan sat across from her in a crowded cafe with cameras on the walls and people everywhere. "If we do this," Ryan said quietly, "we do it honest. No more hiding. No more letting powerful men rewrite the truth." Madeline nodded. "Tell me what you need." Ryan swallowed. "I need to know you'll protect Lucy if this gets ugly. And I need to know you're not here because you miss an old memory." Madeline's eyes filled. "Ryan, my whole life has been full of people who take. Investors. Board members. Family friends who smile and then negotiate your soul." She leaned forward. "You're the only man who ever stepped in front of me and didn't ask what I could give him." Ryan stared at her, feeling something inside him crack open. Then he did the thing he'd never allowed himself to do. He told her everything. The deal. The threats. The silence. The fear. Madeline listened without interrupting. When he finished, she didn't cry. She got quiet. And quiet in people like her meant a storm was forming. "I'm done letting my father's world control mine," she said. "Sutter thinks he owns the past. He doesn't." She pulled out her phone, opened an email draft, and showed Ryan the subject line. "Board meeting, emergency ethics review." Ryan blinked. "What is that?" "My company is built on technology," she said. "But it will stand on truth. If Sutter is advising my board, if my father is still pulling strings, then I'd rather burn my reputation down than keep winning with lies." Ryan's throat tightened. "You could lose everything." Madeline looked at him with a steadiness that felt like the answer to 15 years of emptiness. "I've had everything," she said softly. "And I've never had a home." A week later, the city buzzed with headlines. Madeline Brooks called for an investigation into misconduct tied to her family's influence, including a sealed incident from Westfield University. The board panicked. Investors demanded answers. Sutter resigned before he could be fired. And Ryan? Ryan expected his life to collapse. Instead, something unexpected happened. People saw him. Not as a mechanic. Not as a problem. As a man who'd done the right thing and paid for it. The threat stopped. One evening, Madeline stood outside Ryan's apartment building with Lucy beside him, holding a small paper bag of takeout like it was the most precious thing she owned. Lucy looked up at Ryan. "Is she staying?" Ryan hesitated, then looked at Madeline. Madeline didn't push. She didn't assume. She just waited. Ryan finally nodded. "If she wants to." Madeline's smile was small but real. "I do." And in the middle of a loud American city, where honesty was usually expensive and kindness was usually exploited, they built something simple. Not a fairy tale. A family. Because fate might bring people back together. But morality, courage, and truth were what made them stay. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.